Nigeria's ban on arrivals from Brazil, India, and Turkey over fears of increasing COVID-19 deaths went into effect on Tuesday. COVID-19 pandemic disrupts healthcare priorities in caring for other ailments. In international news, Israel opens investigation into the worst civilian disaster in the country, in which 45 persons were crushed to death at a religious event. And in sport, Nigeria's teenage table tennis star Musa Mustafa ranked world's best in boys under 11 category.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Nigeria has once again recorded another low number of daily COVID-19 infections on Tuesday. 34 new cases were posted in 4 states. Nigeria Center for Disease Control reports Enugu recorded more than half of the new cases with 19 infections. Lagos posted 13, while FCT and Kaduna each announced 1 case. This notched up to slightly more than 165,000 the total confirmed cases in the country. NCDC says 155,371 patients have recovered and have been discharged across the country. COVID-19 death toll stands at 2,063. Nigeria's regular health care priorities were disorganized and reshaped by the current coronavirus pandemic that has hit the country last year. This has complicated treatment of other ailments. As correspondent Tessie Makinde reports, the pandemic has worsened the country's fight against tuberculosis.
For most of last year, 47-year-old Garba Ibrahim suffered from tuberculosis. He couldn't get treatment at hospitals because most hospitals were overwhelmed attending to COVID-19 patients. Eventually, he found a hospital run by the NGO, Faith Alive, who took him in.
I had checked about 3 hospitals for treatment, but they didn't give me attention. I was fortunate to identify this place, and they considered my situation. It was during the lockdown. All attention was about COVID-19, so we who had TB were not considered at all.
While Garba found help, others haven't been so lucky. The National Tuberculosis and Leprosy Control Program says about 60% of cases went unnoticed and untreated last year, with 18 Nigerians now dying every hour from the disease. New cases have also hit a record, 47 every hour, 7 of which are children.
Currently, there's a rise in our tuberculosis cases for 2 reasons. When you see patients who cough, automatically you assume they are COVID patients. If you see patients that sneeze, automatically you assume they are COVID patients. So there's stigma towards COVID, forgetting that the major killer disease, TB, is still with us.
Experts say health workers need to pay more attention to tuberculosis patients and adopt better ways of identifying the diseases which share similar symptoms.
And it's important that we look at this together so that people don't die and the menace don't keep increasing and increasing because we are looking away from what we have at hand.
The World Health Organization says Nigeria is far from achieving its 2025 national target of halving TB cases and slashing mortality by 75%. But local authorities say they are doing their best to hit it. The Nigerian government has promised to prioritize detection, diagnosis and treatment of tuberculosis across the country. The main focus will be teaching people, especially those in rural areas, about the need to seek medical care early. And with such measures in place, more people with symptoms of TB could get diagnosed and treated in time without having to go through the harrowing experiences of Garba.
Nigeria's ban on arrivals from Brazil, India, and Turkey over COVID-19 fears and concerns about the rampant spread of coronavirus in those countries is now in effect. Chairman of the Steering Committee on COVID-19, Boss Mustafa, stated on Sunday in Abuja, non-Nigerian passport holders and non-residents who have visited Brazil, India or Turkey within 14 days preceding their travel to Nigeria shall be denied entry from Tuesday, May the 4th. That was yesterday when the ban took effect. Nigeria has confirmed more than 165,000 COVID-19 cases and more than 2,000 coronavirus deaths. Local and international organizations in Nigeria are taking steps to safeguard their businesses and employees against the insecurity that currently ravages the country. Latest on the list is the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, which has issued a security alert to its staff on how to stay safe in light of alleged plans by criminals to invade state capitals and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. ECOWAS says the criminals' plans include abductions for ransom and recruitment for terrorism. The Commissioner for General Administration and Conference, Vafoli Tule, advised the staff to limit social engagement and avoid night outings. ECOWAS also advised the staff to limit domestic road or air travels. It suggested there may be need to always take anti-ambush and counter-surveillance measures and called on the staff to be vigilant at places of worship, markets, motor parks, filling stations and shopping malls. Coming up, African stories. Uganda suspends flights from India over increasing COVID-19 infections and deaths. And later, international news. Israel opens investigation into the worst civilian disaster in the country in which 45 persons were crushed to death at a religious event.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Travelers from India are now getting cold shoulders in African countries. Uganda has joined Nigeria in announcing a ban on arrivals from India over fears of increasing record-shattering COVID-19 infections and deaths in the country. Correspondent Hilary Ayesiga reports.
Ugandan scientists say they've so far detected 5 variants from different countries, and one of them is a highly infectious super spreader variant discovered in India. Health workers are now moving to contain the disease.
All passenger flights between Uganda and India are suspended until further notice.
The Indian Association of Uganda is rallying its members to follow the stipulated health guidelines. Ugandan scientists say so far one person has tested positive with the variant that was discovered in India. He is currently undergoing care. They are now advising the public to be cautious and suspend all non-essential travel to countries with high infections. Apart from India, travelers from the US, the UK, Turkey, South Africa and Nigeria, among others, have also been advised to suspend non-essential travel to Uganda. The World Health Organization is now encouraging locals to embrace vaccination.
When you get vaccinated, you ensure that your health systems does not collapse, your economy can be opened, and you prevent mutation.
Uganda has so far registered over 40,000 cases and more than 300 deaths. Scientists are hopeful that the new restrictions could help contain the spread of the deadly disease.
Zimbabwe is taking steps to spur the growth of agriculture in the country. It has launched a land bank that is expected to benefit farmers. Correspondent Faraya Nwakutuya has that story.
Zimbabwe has restructured Agribank, a commercial bank, into a diversified agricultural finance institution to provide crucial yet sparse finance to farmers so they can enhance their productive capacity. Thousands of farmers resettled during the country's land reform program have decried the lack of adequate finance to scale up their operations, resulting in low productivity and underutilization of farms.
This is an integral part of our agriculture and food systems transformation strategy. Inclusive, sustainable agricultural financing and development are among the key success factors for a transformative agricultural sector. The agriculture and food systems transformation strategy will transform agriculture from a US $5.3 billion industry to a US $8.2 billion industry by 2025, with exports exceeding $4.5 billion by that year.
The Land Bank incorporates a commercial bank, leasing arm, and an agricultural insurance division to mitigate the risk factors that have plagued farming in recent years due to erratic weather. Unlike existing commercial institutions, the Finance Corporation will not necessarily insist on collateral security, but advance some loans on the strength of business projects. The provision of appropriate finance is crucial to helping small-scale and communal farmers make the transition from seasonal and subsistence farming to more commercially viable agriculture. 700 million Zimbabwe dollars, about $8.3 million US dollars, has been allocated as initial capital.
A strong balance sheet for the Land Bank, Your Excellency, is critical in order to enable it to undertake its mission of underpinning agricultural recovery and growth. And to this end, government is exploring various strategies to strengthen the Land Bank's balance sheet, including the transfer of unencumbered state land to the Land Bank.
Zimbabwe's agriculture sector is set to rebound on the back of a good rainy season that's seen a surge in production across major crops, including maize, whose harvest rose from 907 million metric tons in 2020 to a projected 2.7 million this year, and tobacco, whose deliveries are forecast to rise to 200 million kilograms from 135 million last year.
Salvage work continues at the University of Cape Town after Table Mountain fire that consumed many of its historical collections in libraries and museums. Correspondent Travis Andrews reports.
This is the scorched remains of one of the University of Cape Town's most important buildings. The Degue Library went up in flames after its roof caught alight in the recent Table Mountain fire. The library's African Studies collection was also gutted and is seen as a massive blow to African history.
We have lost all the materials that were in the reading room, and that is quite a sizable chunk of our African Studies book collection. That's close on to anything between 60 and 70,000 items. We've lost a very unique Africa film collections. That was about 3,500 films that were carefully curated and collected over a period of 20 years.
A team of restoration experts has been conducting salvage operations inside the burnt building, and volunteers have been assisting. Staff are also painstakingly sorting through waterlogged books, photos, as well as film reels.
The phase that we're in now is the salvage of materials from the basement. We've got 2 basements and an interspace. I think we've covered more than 65% of all the materials that were in the basement. It's about completing it. We have a triage here where we're identifying wet and dry materials and for treatment, etc.
Within the triage center, some materials have been saved. Staff have also been working tirelessly to store them in a safe way.
We have been regularly pulling out material since the event happened, with a human chain passing crates of wet and soggy material up and down this human chain into the triage tent that you have in the background here, where we physically look at the material.
For now, though, the entire salvage of the library contents could take weeks, and only then can a determination be made on just how badly the fire has affected the entire African Studies program. The University of Cape Town has reached out to other universities around the world who have African Studies programs, so that there can be a sharing of knowledge as well as written and audio-visual materials. Now, they estimate it will take around 3 years for the library to be fully rebuilt.
When we return, international news. Israel opens investigation into the worst civilian disaster in the country, in which 45 persons were crushed to death at a religious event. And later, sports. Nigeria's teenage table tennis star Musa Mustafa ranked world's best in boys under 11 category.
You are watching ANN.
Somewhere in the world, every second of the day, news is happening. And of course, Nigeria is bustling with news day and night. That is why ANN doesn't sleep. Our eyes are peeled, wide open, so no story escapes our radar. We stay abreast of world events and happenings at home. We keep you up to the minute in the world of sports. We give you information to stay on top of your investments and all the hard facts you need to navigate your day. If you miss us on air, you can keep up to date on our website and on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. We are ANN, Africa News Network. We do news right in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Brazil is having difficulty recording any positive health or medical reports these days. Although the country has posted the world's second highest number of COVID-19 deaths, it is not the only pressing medical concern there. In the metropolitan area around the port city of Santos, dengue and chikungunya viruses are also spreading fast this year. The army is in the city of São Vicente to help in the fight against a small but powerful foe, the Aedes aegypti mosquito, which is responsible for the transmission of serious diseases like dengue and chikungunya, which are well-known problems in Brazil. The two viral infections hit every year with different degrees of intensity. This season, they have been peaking and putting more pressure on a health system already overwhelmed by the COVID-19 pandemic. Doctors say one major problem is that early symptoms of chikungunya are similar to those of the coronavirus. They also say it is unlikely the diseases carried by the mosquito will ever be eradicated in Brazil, but can be controlled by carefully eliminating the mosquitoes' nesting grounds. After observing a day of mourning on Sunday for one of its worst civilian disasters, the Israeli government said on Monday it would open an investigation into the deaths of 45 persons crushed in a stampede at a Jewish religious festival last week. Many Israelis are now asking, who is to blame?
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has called for an annual day of mourning after at least 45 people were crushed to death at an overcrowded religious festival in the early hours of Friday. Visiting the site hours later, he was heckled by angry protesters, but vowed to unearth the cause of the deadly incident.
We will carry out a thorough, serious and in-depth investigation in order to ensure that such a disaster does not reoccur.
Tens of thousands of ultra-Orthodox Jews had gathered at the Mount Meron tomb for the annual Lag BaOmer commemorations, which include all-night prayer and dance. Ecstatic crowds assembled despite warnings to maintain social distancing against COVID-19. A stampede ensued in the men's section of the festival, according to medics, and casualties included children. Some victims were asphyxiated or trampled on in a tightly packed passageway, and some went unnoticed until the PA system sounded an appeal to disperse. over 100 people were wounded, and videos on social media showed men trying to push through walls of iron to escape the crush. Bodies lay on stretchers in a corridor covered in foil blankets. Chaim Cohen was among the attendees.
I was there exactly when it happened, down there on the side. It started when a few paramedics started to run, and then there was some kind of mess, police, screaming, a big mess. And after half an hour, it looked like a scene of a suicide bombing attack. Numerous people coming out from there on stretchers.
A police spokesman said the overall capacity at Mount Meron was similar to previous years, but that bonfire areas were partitioned off this time as a COVID-19 precaution. Israeli media said that may have created unexpected choke points on foot traffic. The Justice Ministry said investigators would look into whether there had been any police misconduct connected to the tragedy.
Large numbers of immigrants in the United States protested on International Labour Day to urge the government to give nearly 11 million undocumented immigrants a path to U.S. citizenship. The protesters gathered around the White House and the U.S. Capitol building and expressed their support for the immigration reform bill called U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021. The bill was rolled out by U.S. President Joe Biden's administration in February. There were similar protests in Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York City. The protesters say the immigration bill would make sense if it's become a tangible solution, law and policy that changes the situation of undocumented immigrants. The immigration bill allows undocumented individuals to apply for temporary legal status with the ability to apply for green card after 5 years. The immigrants declared that immigration reform is urgently needed, especially to protect workers in essential sectors who are vital to the functioning of the U.S. economy. Up next, sports. Nigeria's teenage table tennis star, Musa Mustafa, ranked world's best in boys under 11 category. Please stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit. We are on the road every day, canvassing throughout Africa for news you really need. We follow the story everywhere, from every corner of Nigeria to the wide African expanse. We bring you what's making headlines. We connect you with news you can use. ANN, African News Network, in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In sport, the International Table Tennis Federation, ITTF, has ranked Nigeria's teenage table tennis sensation, Musa Mustafa, as the world's best player in the boys under 11 category. Mustafa has made his debut in the seniors category in Lagos during the 2018 Nigeria Open, but he is now the second African to be rated #1 in the world after Hannah Goda, who was named the best in the under 15 girls in the world. Madagascar national team coach Nicolas Dupios has been suspended just under a month before the start of the group phase campaign in the 2022 World Cup qualifiers. In a statement, the Malagasy Football Federation says Dupios would not be paid during the suspension. The federation accused the 53-year-old Frenchman of, quote, engagement with several other entities without prior authorization from the federation, end quote. He's also charged with interference in the selection process of the equipment supplier for the national team. That is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a great evening.